My name is Julio Noriega. As a professor of Latin American cultures and literatures at Knox College, I teach migrant literature, Andean cultures, and indigenous literature courses, among other classes. My research on Quechua poetry has begun decades ago. In the 80s, when I left my teaching position at the University of San Cristobal de Huamanga in Ayacucho, Peru, and became a fellow at the University of Pittsburgh's Hispanic Literatures Doctorate Program in Pennsylvania. Influenced by feelings of nostalgia for the Andes of Peru in Pittsburgh, I decided to write my dissertation on Quechua poetry. Initially, I did not realize how much of a challenge it would prove to be, being at the time full of youth and naive to the path that my research would take me. Having survived the rise of the Shining Path political movement in Ayacucho, I feel encouraged to take on this mountainous endeavor. My point of embarkation to this hopeful adventure was at the Hillman Library in Pittsburgh, where after weeks of research, I found the work of Quechua poets Jose Maria Arguedas and Quilco Huaraca, pseudonym of Andres Allen Castro. I could have written a dissertation about them alone. However, my interest to discover and unveil other Quechua poets, not well known, had already been piqued. Sporadic reading encounters of local poets in Ayacucho, Cusco, and Puno, as well as the work of Andean immigrants in Lima that I had read during my prior college years in Peru, motivated me to apply for the Tinkerfield Research Grant. With grant funding in hand, I began my field research in private and public archives of the most important cities of Peru, gathering poetry, work of unknown poets in Quechua. On my return to Pittsburgh, using the materials I was able to gather, I submitted my dissertation project to the committee chaired by Antonio Cornejo Polar, and it was approved. 2 years later, I completed the first draft of my dissertation, a literary essay on contemporary Peruvian poetry, in Quechua, of course, along with an appendix of the poetry work of more than 40 poets. This voluminous work was later divided into 2 separate works per Cornejo Polar's recommendation. The essay itself that became my dissertation and the appendix, which was published in 1993 as the first Peruvian bilingual anthology of modern poetry written in Quechua and translated into Spanish. Even more rewarding was when the essay of my dissertation won the Letras de Oro Literary Prize in 1994, awarded by the University of Miami and the General Consulate of Spain. Notwithstanding its recognition, my research met with little reception initially, for the Quechua language and culture were not quite popular, neither in Peru nor in the USA at that point. Due to the political situation and violence in Peru at the end of the 20th century, the Peruvian governmental institutions isolated and discriminated against Quechua language by linking its population of speakers with terrorists and Shining Path or Tupac Amaru guerrilla movement. Thus, researching Quechua made you very suspicious of onlookers. In addition, the Peruvian army associated the presence of field researchers with the guerrilla group and the local people with the army's spy work. Few openly express interest in learning Quechua in Peru's major cities. On the other hand, some poets on their relatives imagined that I was making thousands of dollars promoting their work in the USA. Furthermore, there weren't opportunities for teaching Quechua literature. Few centers for Latin American studies at prestigious universities like Gainesville, Florida, Cornell, Ithaca, Illinois, Champaign, and Wisconsin-Madison used to offer language classes for students of Andean anthropology, but not literature classes. Thus, my entire career in the USA has followed the path of a generalist professor in the field of Spanish language, culture, and literature. The current situation looks more optimistic in Peru as well as in the USA, especially with the forthcoming cultural and academic activities, events, contests, and festivals in celebration of the 2022 to 2032 International Decade of Indigenous Languages around the world. Peru is experiencing a literary boom, the golden age of its Quechua poetry and native production. There is also a newly created national award of writers in indigenous language. Peru even has awarded 2 writers the national prize, literary prizes in Quechua, Pablo Landeo in narrative and Washington Cordova in poetry. I'm pleased that there has been an uptick of interest in this field as of late. There are many young poets participating in poetry readings, including remote. There are also various literary journals, blogs, Google translators, newspapers, workshops, and language classes in Quechua. Now people feel that learning Quechua is really cool. Even in the USA, the interest in indigenous language is growing. There are new indigenous languages institutes, and more classes are being implemented with the goal of increasing the presence of BIPOC cultures on campus. Included among them is the Spanish program of Knox College that supported me with the development of my two course series on bilingual indigenous literatures of the Americas. Indeed, this is a promising moment for the future of indigenous languages, and especially for Quechua languages and literatures, and its literature. I am of the opinion that Quechua literary phenomenon that we enjoy today is a result of the work of our predecessors, professors who, within the classroom, were able to mold our thinking. Artists, musicians, actors, activists, and writers who, beyond the academy, broke the cultural complex of feeling embarrassed and inferior about speaking an indigenous language. Their contribution created the ideal climate for this flourishing literary moment. I am very pleased that my preparation of comprehensive anthologies of Peruvian and Bolivian Quechua literature has somehow helped in promoting the poetry work of many unknown authors. It is their work that make my book a kind of unique, compressed, and traveling library.